Hi, my name is Stephanie Ray, your podcast host for Next Step Career Corner. And I'm very excited to have my friend and colleague Denise Bittler with us today. So, Denise, founder and owner of Resume Interview Success, and she's worked in HR for over 30 years and has been helping people reach their career goals for over 9 years. For executives and board members, Denise is the best in class service provider that champions her clients' unique value while crafting a message to differentiate, validate, and communicate their uniqueness so they can stand out from the crowd. As a nationally recognized thought leader, conference speaker, webinar developer and facilitator, and podcast guest, Denise is at the forefront of career services innovation. So, Denise, thank you so much for being here. I have known
Thanks.
you since the beginning of my career as a career coach and resume writer. So, I'm very excited that we get to talk specifically about the unique challenges that women leaders face in their personal career journeys and how to differentiate themselves as executives.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited for this new podcast you have.
All right. Yes, I am. That's going to be great. 2025 is going to be amazing.
Yes.
So, first, let's tell our listeners what is executive differentiation? How would you define that?
So it's in the context of a person's career, and it really involves highlighting what makes them unique. So whether it's skills that make them unique or experiences or achievements that really can differentiate and set them apart from other candidates, other executives. And so many times people focus on the task, even executives, C-suite. When you have a conversation with them, what are you doing? And they're talking very transactional. And an executive differentiation, you really need to be focusing on not just the what, but the why, the how, the who, and really looking at the big picture. How did you impact your department? How did you impact the whole entire enterprise? How did you impact your customers, your clients? And really looking at it on a broader spectrum than what most people are doing. And that's really what that executive differentiation is looking at it on the broader, as a broader picture.
Yeah. Like I had a female client who was in a C suite. I believe she was on the operations side. And what made her unique, differentiated from other executives, is she was really passionate about people. And so she would partner with the HR lead and everything was people focused within operations. So it went against, not against it, it was different than just budget management and operational excellence.
It was a
And
holistic approach.
it was a holistic approach. And so she really brought in those different aspects where here's the tactical side, but also here's the people side. And it really made a difference in her brand.
Yes, and women tend to be able to focus on the small piece, but look at it in context of the big piece or the big picture. And that's just a really unique skill that many women bring to the table. And from an executive standpoint, being able to not only focus on your department and what your department needs to succeed, but looking at it again in that holistic, company wide, industry wide, client base, everything. How is everything impacted by what you're doing?
Mhm.
So,
Wow, that's really good. So, how does executive differentiation impact an individual's career advancement? And what strategies can women leaders use to differentiate themselves in a competitive job market?
so this many women, myself included, are not good at tuning our own horn, for lack of
No.
a better way to say it, which is very surprising because I can talk to anybody but when it comes to selling yourself, taking ownership of your accomplishments, that can be very difficult for women. Women tend to do things like, we did this, or I believe, or I think, and these are some of the obstacles that women will face because of their language, their body language, their verbal language. And what some of the things that they can really do is, like you said, with that particular client, identifying what makes them unique, what makes them really succeed. So one of the things I do with my clients is When you get to the executive level, I don't put a skills section on a resume, especially when it's senior VP, C suite, whatever. The reason being is it's assumed that everybody that's applying at that level has those skills, those strategic skills and different things like that. What I do is I work with my clients to identify, I call them their four core success driver skills. Those are those four skills that they excel at in such a way. Either they do something different with that skill, or they have perfected that skill over and above what the normal person is bringing into it. And we focus on that. And we don't just say, okay, let's go. We build the story. What is it that they're doing with that skill that makes them unique, that impacts the bottom line for an employer, and really focusing on their unique value. So you've got their value proposition, who they are, what value they bring. But the core success drivers even take it a step further of, yes, this is what I can do for you. This is how I do it. And the other thing is the networking, leveraging the network. Women are very good at networking. They're not good at asking for help. They're not good at utilizing their network to grow their career, to advance their career. Because a lot of women feel like they're taking advantage of somebody. If they go to their network about a job or to try and get connections at a certain company and things like that. So knowing some of the things that they may not be comfortable doing, but the things that they really need to do to move forward. That's one of the biggest things is identifying it for women, putting a name to it so that they can then try and address it.
And I find when I'm working with women, no matter what level they're at, if I ask them what makes them unique, they don't have an answer. They stumble. And so I find when I'm talking to them about their career history or the boards that they're on or any volunteer work that they're doing, it comes out because they're talking about it, but it's not like a pretty little sentence tied up in a bow. So, what are your strategies on helping women define their unique value proposition?
So there's a number of things that you can really do to try and define that value proposition. And this is going to be a little generic for women. And hopefully, some of the women listening to this will go, oh, yeah, I do that. But women tend to bring a very unique strategic value. Um, Women tend to have an inclusive and collaborative approach. You just talked about that with your client, with working with HR and looking at, again, the whole employee, not just the bottom line, but how are we impacting our employees? How are we supporting our employees? The other thing with women is the unique perspectives they bring and problem solving skills. Women tend to be amazing problem solvers. Again, back to that, they see what's right in front of them, and they also see the bigger picture and how the pieces interact. Women tend to be, and I'm not saying when I'm saying any of this, I'm not saying men aren't this way. So please, if there's
Right,
anyone
right.
listening, please know I'm not saying you don't possess these skills, but women tend to be very authentic and they're trustworthy and trusting, which in some cases can cause an issue because you swim with sharks the higher you get in an organization. But women, I would never want to change. I'm very trusting. I would never want to change. I was a director level and things weren't always as they seem, but I wouldn't let that change me. So that's, I think, something that an advantage that women have. Women also do very well navigating uncertainty.
Mhm.
You spend your whole life as a woman with uncertainty, whether it's family, whether it's career, whether it's, all these outside responsibilities. So women are very good at that. Okay. One of the things that I try and tell my female clients is look at what you're good at. So if it's inclusive leadership, if it's that unique perspective, and find ways to showcase that executive presence. Show, don't tell. Okay. Don't tell me you have some executive skill. Tell me a story that demonstrates that executive skill. That story then can become a bullet in a resume. It can become part of your about section on your LinkedIn. It can become part of your bio or your elevator speech. And you do this over and over. And now all of a sudden, you've got this wow of this executive skill, this and how you're unique, how you use that skill, how proof of that skill in your stories.
Mhm.
And that's for me, that's the process with the client. You mentioned when you talk to them and all of a sudden these things are coming out. That's one of the advantages of working with a career service provider, whether it's a resume writer or career coach, whatever, is we know what questions to ask to get our clients thinking. Like when I do an intake call, for example, I have some mandatory questions because I need to know certain things. But the rest are, I call them thought provoking questions that I know that are going to elicit a story. And that story becomes a tagline, or that story becomes an aha moment, or that story gets them thinking about things that they really weren't giving themselves credit for. Or so just asking that and then following up with why did you do that? Or how did you do that? Or who was impacted by that? And looking at it on the broader picture, it takes away that feeling like you're bragging because you're just telling
Yes.
a story, that you're having a conversation. And then it's our job as resume writers or career coaches to take that and put it into a bullet or a headline or whatever, or coaching for an interview or things like that. The best I love, the best thing you can come away with when you're working with a client and you give them the resume or whatever, and they look at it and go, oh my God, I would hire me. Or, "Oh my God, I didn't know I was that good." I didn't write my own resume. I couldn't write my own resume
No, that
because
must be very difficult.
because I couldn't verbalize the things that I've accomplished. But yet working with someone, they were asking me the questions and the stories were coming up and the accomplishments and all those things were coming up. It's the same thing with any client, but female clients especially. They need storytelling, they need conversation, not, well, what did you do that was so great? And it has to be because they don't think it's great. They don't give themselves credit for it. So I know that was a little long winded.
No,
Sorry.
but it's true. It's with all the technology that we have, it just doesn't nothing beats having a face-to-face conversation with somebody. And my phone calls are all via Zoom, but
Yep.
the video to video, face-to-face, just having that conversation so you can learn about somebody. And you're right, it is our job. We're inclined to, oh, I can take that, I can use that. Oh, that's a part of her brand, or that's a part of the unique value proposition that we can create. But it is a nice feeling when they get the first draft and they're going, wow, this is amazing. I didn't realize I was that good.
Yes. Well, and two, and that whole intake, that whole conversation is also giving them fodder for interviews.
Mhm.
Because while they are looking at their accomplishments in a different light, they're looking at those accomplishments in the context of the enterprise impact, or they're looking at those accomplishments on what they've done, not necessarily what the whole team has done. Because one of the things that I hear all the time with my female clients is, wow, the team really did that. Really? Okay, so you had nothing to do with it. You didn't pick the team. You didn't train the team. You didn't manage the team. You didn't provide them with the tools and the information that they need to get. Well, yeah, I did. I said, it's okay. So you are responsible for that result, and the team may have implemented, but you are the one that drove that result. And that's very hard for a lot of women because, well, they really did the work. No, they couldn't have done it without you, your leadership, your training, your oversight, and really focusing on what you've done to build the team, grow the team, give them all the tools they need. Then everything we're doing is your success. You have a hand in that success.
I just had that conversation last week. Same thing, same exact thing. All right. Well, let me ask you another question. Can you discuss some of the common obstacles women leaders face when crafting their resumes and advancing their careers? How can they overcome these challenges?
Yeah. So part of it again is if you're not confident, if you're not confident in what you've accomplished, or um, if you can't articulate what you've accomplished in that executive language, the executive impact, the enterprise impact, work with somebody. Okay. Don't try and go it alone because you're only going to hurt yourself. Am I saying every person needs to work with a resume writer or career coach? Absolutely not. But if you don't have the confidence, if you don't feel that you're able to sell yourself with the demonstrating the value that you bring to the table, work with someone. Like I said, any good resume writer who's worth their salt does not do their own resume for this very reason. You need someone to guide you. You need someone to ask the right question to really evoke the who, what, why, when, how, where, and the impact, not just the department impact, but the enterprise impact and things like that. So that's one of my main things is know when you need help, when you need to bring somebody else on board. Okay. And that fast, I forgot the question.
No, that's okay. We were talking about common obstacles that women face, especially with their resume,
Oh my goodness.
and how they can overcome those obstacles.
Okay. Sorry about that. So a lot of women, and this is one that I see, and I know I do it myself. Language, unconscious bias that we create with the language that we use and the body language that we present. The language that we use, when I say that, I mean you say, "Well, I think," or "I believe," or "Oh, can I ask a question?" Or "I'm not sure if this is right," but that in conversation, using words in your resume that are soft, basically, or wishy washy, or you didn't just lead, you spearheaded, right? You weren't along for the ride, you pioneered that project, all right? You didn't just get an investment. I can't think of a word off the top of my head for it, but own the accomplishment and own it at the impact level that it deserves. That executive enterprise impact level. Own it. Own it through the verbs you use. Own it through the success stories that you share. So many times I'll have executives come to me and I'm reading their resume and I'm like, oh, job description. This looks like a job description because it's tasked. There's no context. There's no quantifiables. Or there may be some quantifiables, but there's no context to go with it. So, and for example, if I have a resume that says I saved my company $250,000, and that's all the bullet says, and I'm applying to XYZ widget company, and they're really looking for ways to cut costs or save money or whatever, and they see that I saved my company $250,000, that's great. But they don't know, did I save it because I cut a whole department? In which case, oh, that's not going to work for our company. Or did I save it because we optimized our process or whatever the case may be? So by giving context, you're not only sharing that you're accomplished and that you can impact the bottom line for a company, but you're sharing how you did it, that how you did it or why you did it, all those types of things that are so important to allow the reader to envision you doing that same accomplishment for them. So that's probably two of my biggest things is watch the ambiguous language and own your accomplishment with and provide the context.
It's true. For me, I have that conversation with women. What are the facts, right? What are the numbers? What are the qualifiables? What are things that happen? What were the results? And what did you do to get there? And you have to take the emotion away from it. You have to get away from the confidence question. Even when we get into the wording of initiated versus collaborated, it's very interesting because facts are the facts.
Yeah,
And if you can get our clients, men and women, to just see the facts, they're going to see how impressive the results are.
exactly. And how impressive they are. Like
Yeah.
they, and again, that gets back to never start a verb or a bullet on a resume with collaborated with or supported or whatever. You always start with what you did, and then you can end with the collaborative part, but always focus on what you did. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I've read thousands of resumes in my time in HR, and if I see something and it says collaborated with, well, I don't know, did you actually have any involvement, or did you happen to bring them coffee and we're sitting in a corner? So be very conscious of the verbs you're using and what that can come across as when
Yeah.
someone's reading it.
All right. Next question. What unique value do female executives bring to the table in terms of strategy and executive presence? And how can they capitalize on this value in their careers and resume writing?
So we talked a little bit about they're very inclusive, they're very collaborative, they do have a very unique perspective. And women, most women don't have the confidence that they deserve, that they've earned. They just don't have it. But they are good at a number of things. Again, navigating uncertainty, things like that. The way they can really capitalize it is highlight that inclusive leadership. Okay. Show that, like your client, that you are collaborating with HR. You know, you're not in operations, but you're collaborating with HR. And what's the impact? Don't just say that I'm collaborating with them. That's great. Show what that collaboration, what impact that collaboration has had. So before you were collaborating, there was this much turnover in the operations department. Now that you're collaborating and they're getting special training and they're doing this and their onboarding is better, blah, blah, blah. Your turnovers drop to this. Be very specific. Okay. No opinions. Okay. When you say something without context, without quantifiables, it's an opinion. You provide the context, you provide the quantifiables, know it's a fact. So really make sure that you're showing the whole picture and that what you're sharing is a fact, not an opinion. Use action-oriented language. Okay. Again, instead of responsible for or led, it's spearheaded, created, even drove, or just words that show and command executive level presence. Okay. And can quantify the achievements whenever possible. And people automatically think dollars when you say quantify. It can be anything. It can be dollars, it can be percents, it could be market share, it could be turnover, it could be time to hire, it could be anything. Thinking about impact. When you think about impact, what changed? Okay, it was we have this many more clients, or we have uh, if you're in IT, my brain's not working here. The call center, they're turning them over within 24 hours now. Or just really looking at context, looking at the whole big picture. The other thing is if you're sharing something that is ongoing, so you're sharing quantifiables for something that's ongoing, think about the longest time period that's appropriate to share. Don't tell me that you're saving $50,000 a month. Tell me you're saving $600,000 a year. Okay. I think I did the math
Yeah.
right there.
It's close
Okay.
enough.
But really think about the largest impact, because if I read a bullet that says I save 50,000 a month, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But I
Yeah.
save 600,000 a year, that makes an impact. If you negotiate a multi-year contract and that there's a saving, don't just give a percent, but savings over 3 years or however long the contract is. Making sure, again, context and the most impactful time frame and realistic time frame to demonstrate.
That
That's
makes sense.
a big one.
Yeah. It has to make sense. And I would also say, especially to our listeners, this can also be great for performance evaluation time. Every year, you can track your metrics for your goals based on that year. And then if it's documented and you save your performance evaluation, then you have content for your resume. So this is not only just a resume bullet that we're talking about, we're also talking about performance evaluations where maybe you have a bonus tied to it or a salary increase tied to it. I mean, this is important information to document throughout your career, not just when you're looking for a job 10 years after being at a company, right? So,
That is so huge. I was one of the things I taught my twins when they started in the business world was you need a career bride book. I don't care if it's a physical book or both my kids are very techy, so they've got it saved some portfolio somewhere. Every time they get a recommendation or a testimonial from a client or another worker, my one son, the company he works for, people can be nominated. And he's won so many of those things. So every one of them, they're saved in the bride book. Yes, you can access them in your portal for work, but what happens if you leave there? Then you don't have access to it.
correct.
So make sure you're downloading and saving those performance evaluations. Make sure that you are keeping copies of every digital certificate or whatever that you got, or copying and pasting those accolades or whatever. Because so many times I'll work with a client and they've been with the company, like you said, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And it's like, okay, well, what have you done? And they're like, I don't know. I don't remember.
Right.
So don't wait until it's time to update the resume. Don't wait until it's time to do your performance evaluation. Do this throughout the year and then it's there. You can access it. You can use it for, again, networking conversations or whatever. Be prepared. Don't be reactive with that.
Exactly. Exactly. Do your homework ahead of time.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. And to round out this conversation, I just have one last question for you. What are the top 5 recommendations on making the resume more impactful to help a female candidate stand out?
Okay. So first off is make sure the resume is future focused. What I mean by that is don't just let all your previous roles stay the same. And now you just add this new one on there. Because what you really need to be doing is you need to be rewriting your past to speak to your future. So looking at the past, so you're a VP and you want to go for the CFO role. Okay. Go back and look at every other job in the past and decide which one of those shows strategic value as it relates to a CFO position. Okay. Yeah, it does. Let me expand on that one. This really doesn't add value. I'm going to get rid of that bullet. So constantly repurposing your past to reflect and be strategic and focused on the future. That is probably one of the biggest things that you can do because now your whole resume supports your value, not just the most recent job that you added in there. So always constantly be looking at that resume all the way back to the beginning. What can be dropped off? What doesn't add value? What should be expanded on to speak to that future direction that you're shooting for? That would be my first one. Okay, use assertive language. Never say I'd leave, responsible for, manage. Use those spearheaded, pioneer, built, take ownership and stand up for what you've accomplished. Okay. Next would be, again, emphasize the achievements, quantifiable results, but include context, either the who, what, why, when, how, where. That adds value, it adds believability, and it helps the reader better envision you doing that same thing for them, accomplishing that same thing for them. Make sure that you have identified a very strong personal brand and executive summary. So many times I see resumes and it'll say Mary Smith or contact information, word professional summary, and then a dense paragraph that is so generic, it could be anybody. First of all, professional summary, that is prime real estate. Okay. If somebody's looking at your resume, they're pretty much looking at the top third of the first page. That's what's going to help them decide, wow, I want to learn more, or oh, next. Okay. Professional summary is that prime real estate. Replace that with a value proposition headline. Who you are, what career level, what type of role, if there's a specific industry, and then maybe just a little teaser, okay, about your value. Then you can actually do like a headline that really speaks to your value. And from there, you can build, maybe give a couple examples, sample bullets right up front. Now somebody can look at that top section, know who you are, what type of role, what career level, what value you bring, and a little teaser proof of that value. That is how you own the real estate in a resume, is taking advantage of it, making sure that everything that you do from that point on supports and builds on that brand and that value proposition. Okay. And then last piece, again, showcase leadership vision. Okay. You can do this with a clean design. You can do this with the verbs you use. You can do this with the bullets that you or the content that you decide to focus on, making sure that it is strategic, that it is enterprise impactful. That's the one last piece with that is you may be a VP of marketing and you've got a lot of accomplishments within marketing. Don't just write your bullets on the impact within marketing. Expand those bullets on how what you accomplished in marketing impacted the enterprise level. How did it impact the bottom line? How did it impact their employee retention? So don't just focus on your direct area of responsibility. Always be considering how what you've done impacted the entire organization. That's my last.
Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, the impact on the organization, the real estate space, the whole time I'm just sitting here nodding along because it's true. There's i- it's do not go online and download a template. Just do not do that. Don't do it. If you can write your own, open a Word document, Google Doc, and just use every line as much as you can. I love the idea of the title or value proposition followed by impact. I mean, it's the perfect combination to get everything. And we're talking a third of the page. We're not
Mhm.
talking half a page or a full page. Excuse me. But all of that. Um, it's great. It's great. I mean, boil it down to those 5 tips. That is exactly what you need to do to have executive presence on your resume. Well, I know this went really fast. I love talking about resumes, and I especially love helping leaders figure out how to brand themselves on a piece of paper. So, Denise, thank you so much. Again, Denise is the founder and owner of Resume Interview Success. She's been doing this for a very long time, and I've seen her work. It's very good. We could all learn from Denise. My name is Stephanie Rink, and I am the owner of Next Step Career Services and your podcast host for Next Step Career Corner. So please click follow and subscribe. And thank you for joining us today. Take care, Denise.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.